Hello there everyone and welcome back to the channel Russia in Context. We're here today in the center of Moscow. I've got Sadovое Koltso, the garden ring, very busy and noisy right behind me. Off to my left back there you can see the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the mid building, and then beyond that is Arbat, which is quite possibly one of the busiest and most crowded places in the city after Red Square, especially for tourists. But all those really busy, famous touristy areas aren't really of interest to me, and that's not really what I want to show you here today. In fact, as far as I'm concerned, there's not a whole lot to see and do there. Now, what I want to do here in this video, and in future videos, now that the weather has gotten a little bit warmer and more agreeable, are show you parts of Moscow that you might never have seen before or even heard of before. The types of places that maybe even locals have never been to, or if they have, maybe just once or twice in their lives. Я не могу считать себя москвичом, но живешь где-нибудь 15 лет, и в итоге вполне возможно, что ты знаешь город лучше, чем местных. But anyway, enough of the preamble here. Let's get into what I want to show you. And before we get off this busy road here, I want to turn our attention around to this. What we have here is a mansion of sorts, and you can see that they even have the fountain on, which is new. Last time I was here, it was not on. This is the Marose Mansion, right? Now, from the outside, you can see it is a mix of neoclassical architecture, some eclectic elements in there as well. And while the exterior is quite pretty, it's the interior which is really the show here. We're unfortunately not going to go in there today. The interior, they have Egyptian Rococo elements as well. That's what made the building famous back in the day. They have tours like a few times a year, so maybe at some point in time I'll come back here and check it out. But for now, I just wanted to show you. There's also a bit of a history connected to the building, but it's kind of a sad one. I'll talk about it a little bit more. Let's just move along. So, we are going to turn right here. We're going to go right down Глазовский переулок. Alright. Now, quite a few more, well, not a huge number of people out here. It's the 8th of May right now, so the May holidays have just started, but most people are, I guess, avoiding the center. We're going to go down here a little bit further. You can see my shadow, and that's nice. It's very nice that the sun is at my back. In fact, when I started this morning, I wasn't sure if it was going to come out because the sun wasn't out. Kind of a cloudy day, but it ended up being quite nice. Now, up here on the left, you might be able to see an interesting building with the flags flying there, right? And that right there is the List Mansion. That's considered the first building in Moscow to be done in the modern style of architecture. I'm not actually sure if you can go inside. It is currently a government building. It's where the representation of Kaluzhskaya Oblast is situated here in the city. But most of the good stuff is on the outside, let's be real. You can see some of the murals there. And one of the things which makes it a modernist piece of architecture is the asymmetrical nature of it, which should be pretty obvious from this view. I'm going to wait for this car to cross the street, but I'll try to zoom in post to see how that looks, but if not, you can see right there the murals up there, quite intricate. And then really the one I really love is this one right here over the door, the underwater world that they've got there. And it might be a little bit hard to see, but in the lower right corner are the initials WW. That is the artist's initials, obviously. But Yeah. Yes. Представительство правительства Калужской области при правительстве Российской Федерации. So, but yeah, just, you know, there are other murals over there too. Right under the awning. But very nice. I'm going to cross back to the other side of the street so that we can get a more full view here. And yeah, lovely building, very beautiful. The interiors, I've seen pictures. If you go on Google Maps, you can actually do the street view. They have some 3D options to take a walk around, or maybe it's on the site. I don't remember. But I want to turn our attention over in this direction now, because we have this building which looks like a palazzo right out of Venice. This is the Kusivitzkaya tenement house. So the family that also owned the List Mansion after its namesake, they lived in it. So the List Mansion belonged to one person, and then it went to the Kusivitzky family, and this is their tenement home. Yeah, this was for renters, but unfortunately you can't go inside of it right now or even into the yard, but it is, well, you can basically get the idea from here. It's quite nice still. But all right, we're gonna move further along here, and on the corner right here, this yellow building, you can see, that is the Palivanov House. It's a wooden one, which is something of a rarity here in Moscow. And but you know, if you're looking for them, you'll notice more of them than you might expect. This one was built actually not long after the fire of 1812, and it actually looks quite good. It's undergone some major reconstruction. There was a massive fire here in 2004, almost completely destroyed it, but they have done a pretty good job of bringing it back up to snuff. But right across here we can see some of the detail on the doors here. Nice woodwork. Obviously the door could use a little bit of some repair, but the building itself is in very nice condition still, considering the fact for how old it is and what happened to it. So jaywalking. Okay. Escape into the shadows here. Alright, well, there we go. Okay. So, actually, you know what? Might as well cross here. Give us a better view. And I want to be on this side of the street anyway. So, the last building that we're going to take a look at here on Glazovский переулок is, it's also a government building. It is the representative for the Tambovskaya Oblast, just like the other modernist building was a representative for the Kaluzhskaya Oblast. It is another modernist building. You can again see some of the geometrical figures and the asymmetrical design here on the building. Yeah, just another nice piece of modernist architecture here. And that one actually belonged to the... actually, I don't know who that belonged to. Alright, we're moving along here. I want to make sure we don't... just got some other nice older buildings here. But up here, we have the Chilean Embassy. And, I mean, I guess that's cool and all. But the house itself, it's quite nice. This is actually the Frito House. And you're going to want to keep their name in mind. We're going to be talking about them. They were kind of a rent-seeker family. Is that the term, rent-seeker? Yeah. But this was their main residency, and we're going to be coming back to a Frito residence a little bit further on as I get along here. But yeah, quite a residence, you can imagine. You can imagine back in the day. So, and the Chileans got a nice piece of real estate there for sure. But very nice. All right. But this one, this is the Italian Embassy. And the Italians obviously rank a little bit higher than the Chileans here. And look at this building. I'm gonna get around the electric car charger and get us into a more central. Lots of lilacs in the bloom too, which is great. Like, you want to take a smell? Breathing in. A little out of focus, but sure. Okay, so let me get us over here around the lilacs. Okay, there we go. So this, what is now the Italian Embassy, there's just a lot going on here in terms of styles, right? Just an eclectic mix all over the place. I'm not really going to go through all of them. It's not really all that important. This is the Ber Mansion. Aside from it just being fascinating to look at, there are two stories connected to it, one fun and one kind of sad. So let's start with the fun one. And this is one of the first homes in Moscow to have electricity. And the story goes that when they were having the housewarming party, they didn't tell any of the guests in advance that there was going to be electrical lighting. And so all of the guests, especially the women, they got all dolled up. They assumed that there was going to be dinner by candlelight. And so as evening fell, when it came time for everyone to get to the table, all of a sudden the electrical lights came on. And because the hostess understood that there was going to be electrical lighting, she did not put on a ton of makeup, and so she looked just like way better than everyone else at the party. So yeah, kind of a fun, interesting little story connected to the Berg Mansion here. And yeah, now there's, I said, a sad story connected to it as well. And I mentioned earlier with the Marose Mansion that there was a sad story connected to it, but it was similar, like a lot of stories connected to the Revolution area. So I'm going to walk and tell you the story, take one last look at that beautiful building. You might want to pause and, I don't know, zoom or go on Google and take a closer look, because obviously an action camera is only going to capture so much. So the sad story connected to that family, right? It is it's common to, like I said, a lot of the old estates and mansions from during the Revolutionary period, but it's basically the family was torn apart by the Revolution. In this case, the house was nationalized and the family was run out of it ultimately. The sons went off to fight in the White Army, and two of them out of the seven would eventually die in combat. The women ended up remaining in the Soviet Union, but that didn't really work out so well for them. They were later subjected to labor camps, hunger, sickness, all the fun things. One of the sons, after the defeat of the White Army, he actually found himself stuck in Turkey. He couldn't get his family out of the country, and the Soviets wouldn't pass any correspondence on to them from him or vice versa. The head of the Berg family, who, I gotta pull up my notes here because I don't remember all of their names, you'll have to forgive me for that. The head of the Berg family, Sergei Pavlovich, and his wife Olga Leopoldovna, they would later have their rations card taken away from them, and then they would die in, abject poverty. In the early years of the revolution, I hate how this goes. I think we're going to take a left here. Yes. We are going left onto Большой Лёвшинский переулок. So we had a little bit of I love all these quiet little neighborhoods here. Like I said, Arbat is not that far from here, and it's with all the tourists and all the dumb, hokey nonsense. And then here, you've just got the way life is. The way it's nice and quiet and calm and everything like that. But we had a little sad story. Let's talk about a nicer one. And it is connected to Russia, but it's not exactly connected to a Russian per se. We're going to go, there's a little park right here. We're going to come right over here, and let's talk a little bit about this guy. This is a monument to Frito Manson. Now, Frito Manson was a Norwegian explorer, and he actually crossed Greenland on skis in 1888. Gotta check the notes for that. He won the Nobel Peace Prize posthumously in 1938 for his work with refugees and stateless peoples in the wake of World War I. He also worked in the early Soviet Union, acted as a representative for the League of Nations, helped prisoners of war after World War I return to Russia, / the Soviet Union. And those people who had fled the revolution, he actually helped them get set up in Europe and find new homes. Now, we have this statue right here, and if you don't know the story behind it, it might be a little bit strange, but there's Manson here, and there's a little girl holding a loaf of bread. Now, pretty well known, but in the early days of the Soviet Union, famine was a pretty common thing. And there was, in the Volga region in 1921 and 1922, there was a massive famine, and Manson was one of the guys who actually tried to get international attention brought to it. The total number of people who died are in the millions, about 5 million dead according to Soviet figures, although the number could have been double that. Manson himself stated that 30 million people were affected by the disaster. It got so bad that people even resorted to cannibalism, so he did his best to try to alleviate that situation and bring help to the people. But we got a Austrian embassy, or I guess it's the Austrian embassy right there. A little bit more subdued of a building. And Чистый переулок. Чистый переулок is where the patriarch lives officially, I should say. It's where he officially lives. In fact, right before that green tree, there are 2 green flags, and that is the official residence of Patriarch Kirill. But yeah, we're going to go on. We don't really care about him or all of that. We are going to talk about the church, though, a little bit. So, all right. Got another little park up here. Somebody lost a cat. We're actually going to go through the park. Nice and green. It's quite chilly, though. Except it was warm, but it's like plus 10 today. Real feel like 6. That's all Celsius. So. Got a pooch walking around over there. We're going to talk about this church right here. This is Храм Успения Пресвятой Богородицы на Могильцах, which is a mouthful for sure. It's the Church of the Assumption of the Virgin Mary on Mogilcevsk. So take a look at it. I'm going to cross the street because I got the wide angle so we can still get it in. But kind of an unusual church for Russia, and it's actually important for 2 reasons. So the first one, the one that is maybe more interesting to a lot of people, is that it's actually featured in 2 of Lev Tolstoy's novels, Anna Karenina and War and Peace. In Anna Karenina, I don't remember exactly what happens here, but in War and Peace, I don't remember what happens here. In Anna Karenina, this is actually where Levin and Kitty get married. What's more interesting, though, for me, as someone who's not a huge fan of Tolstoy, not a fan at all, is that this church was designed by Nicolas Legrand, who was a French architect. His French background is what makes this interesting. You can see there are 2 bell towers, which basically doesn't happen in Orthodox churches, right? And that's visible, right? That's the French influence of it here. And yeah, very European style. There was a church on this site since 1560, so it's quite old. But what we see here was built in 1791, quite a bit later. Legrand, though, is more important than just this single church, though. 2 decades earlier, before this church was built in 1775, he created the general architectural plan for the city, which would transform Moscow from a provincial backwater into a more European-style metropolitan city of the imperial variety. And it was approved by Catherine the Great. It's a bit unfortunate that his modern-day predecessors seem hell-bent on destroying everything or replacing it with steel and glass high-rises without any personality. But let's, what do you say? I don't know if the church is working today, but if it is, I'm gonna maybe have a look inside. I'm gonna be quiet. Wrong door. Okay, I know some people have no problems going into churches and just being like a big old goober like that, but I have always felt just incredibly awkward doing that. I don't know, The thing is, with certain places, especially in Europe, when it's like a tourist church and you know it's a tourist church, then it's not really such a big deal because, like, but this is a working church, and I know nothing's going on there, so without that, but it still feels kind of weird, right? Place of worship, but whatever. Anyway, let's get back on. We're actually coming up to the end here. I'm going to turn our attention back around. We're here on Большой Лёвшинский переулок, and which way? Hold on. I want to go. Oh my god, I got lost. I do believe I want to go. No. Okay, I went the wrong way. You'll have to forgive me. I went too far. I got distracted with my own thoughts, but it's okay. We're walking around the city. Hopefully you're enjoying this. If you are enjoying it, leave a like, do all the YouTube stuff, comment down below. Woo! I took us to Mogильцевский переулок, and we wanted to be on Большой Могильцевский переулок. So, yeah, we're gonna go back to this little park, and we're going to take a right. This is an art school. Yeah, very modern-looking building here, which is nice. More lilacs. Always lovely. Ba-da-bum. Got someone out walking their dog. Poodles are all the rage here. I don't know. Are poodles all the rage where you live? Let me know. I don't know. My wife loves poodles, so. And I'm not going to go back there, but you would never expect it. But there's actually a little park behind that strange yellow building. Also, fun fact. It's a government building, I don't know what it is, but the very expensive car, that's cool and all, but it has a blue siren on top of it. That's called a Miguela. It basically allows them to break all of the traffic rules. Boy, way back in the day, there was a whole Sini Vidro, a whole movement kind of attempting to fight against people using them, because people used to just put them on the top of their car, and even if they weren't supposed to, and they'd just break all the traffic rules. Because there was no oversight, but anyway, okay, so we come to the end of Большой Могильцевский переулок, and we're going to curve around here, and we are on Plotnikov переулок. So, this right here on the left, right here, right, where this taxi's coming from, that's actually Глазовский переулок. That's where we just started, and in fact, where the sun is going to blast you in the face, and me in the face, you might be able to make out some of the buildings that we saw at the beginning of this little tour, but I sure can't because it's very bright. So let's get out of that and around to this, the final stop on our little tour here. And remember the Frito House, the Chilean Embassy that we passed earlier? Well, this is one of their tenement houses, and they owned a lot of them in the region. That was how they earned a lot of their money. At the start of the 20th century, landlording was all the rage, and estate and manor owners were selling off smaller properties left and right, demolishing the small 2- and 3-story buildings that had previously dominated the city, in order to build 5- to 7-story buildings in their place, more than doubling the real estate available for leasing out, a practice that the city has rediscovered more than 100 years later in the 2020s. I personally love the irony here, but for the majority watching, you'll want to know about the figures on this building, because they're quite interesting. And I'm going to try to get a little bit closer, and I'll try to zoom in later as well too. But there are some figures on the building, and I'll go around here, see the corner here. But the figures on the building, right? They're the main decoration. This tenement house is sometimes referred to as the house with writers because of some familiar faces we can see in the bas reliefs here. We got Gogol, Pushkin, and Tolstoy to be exact. Now, they all appear to be searching for, reaching towards a female figure, or female figures. Those are the muses. But because of the rather intimate way the figures are in relation to each other, how they're kind of hanging all over each other there, a popular rumor in this area is that the building was actually a bordello, and that the writers depicted here frequented it. The more likely explanation, however, is that the sculptures were just ordered up by a museum here in the city, only to have them rejected then by the client, who found them too frivolous, so to say. But then it made for a nice and memorable addition here to the facade of a recently erected building, maybe as a bit of way to entice people in to living here. But yeah, that's it. That's the end. Took you around some of the smaller side streets of the Arbat region, I suppose you could say. I do like walking around here. It's interesting too, because I've lived here how many years now, right? Oh, for like 15. And until even maybe a few weeks ago or a month ago or so, I'd never been down this area, and then started walking around. And kind of the fun thing with Moscow is it's layered so densely, it's like a matryoshka doll in itself. So if you had a good time here, or you learned something, saw something interesting, like I said, leave a like, leave a comment. I plan on doing more of these videos over the summer. I have a whole list geared up, and I'm already putting together the next one. So yeah, I'll wait for the car to pass, but I hope everyone is having a good day, or whatever time of sutuk it is when you see this. But yeah, this has been Russia in Context. Thanks for watching.